I thought being not on the lease made me invisible. I'm Priyanka. 31, Indian American, graduate student with a full-time lab job and a talent for pretending consequences are optional if you say sorry fast enough. My boyfriend, Matteo, is 33, an oncology nurse who inventories everything in life, meds, feelings, rent. He got the one-bedroom first. Newer building, key fob elevator, a gym nobody uses after February. When we started dating, I stayed over twice a week, then 4 nights, then my toothbrush became a cup and my cup became a drawer. I told myself it was love. It was also logistics I didn't want to pay for. The lease said no additional occupants without written approval and no pets without a pet addendum. It wasn't personal, it was printed. I read it and still brought my rescue mutt, Bindi, on short visits that lasted entire weekends. I walked her late and carried her up the stairs when she whined so neighbors wouldn't hear the little tags on her collar. I joked we were Ocean's 11, but for chihuahuas. Matteo would smile, then look at the lease taped inside our pantry door like a man who knows the rules will win eventually. Let's add you and Bindi, he said in March. I'll pay the pet deposit, we can split the monthly. He'd even emailed the property manager to ask about the process. I waved him off. They're sharks. They'll nickel and dime us. I'm barely here anyway. Barely here meant half the time. Barely here meant a package with my name getting delivered on a Tuesday when I was at the lab and Matteo was at work. The concierge called the property office when they couldn't release a parcel to a name not on the resident list. The property office looked up the parcel. They looked up our unit. They looked up the security cameras. The next afternoon, an envelope lived on our door like a scarlet letter taped with blue painter's tape. Notice to cure or vacate. Unauthorized occupant and unauthorized pet. You have 7 days to cure the violations by removing the unauthorized occupant and pet or you must vacate. Failure to cure may result in eviction. I laughed. Then I read it again and my stomach collapsed into a fist. It spelled out what I'd been pretending wasn't real. Having an unapproved occupant or pet is a lease violation, and buildings typically serve a cure or quit notice. A formal warning to fix it or leave. Before they file for eviction. It wasn't a kidnapping, it was a printout with teeth. Matteo didn't yell. He put the notice on the counter and sat across from me like a nurse about to explain lab results. We have a week, he said. We cure by moving you and Bindi out and keeping the apartment, or we don't, and they can file. I can't risk an eviction on my record. Not for my job, not for future rentals. They can't just kick me out. I'm not even a tenant, I tried, reaching for a technicality like a rope. He pulled up a tenant's rights page and slid his laptop over. In most places, if someone is living in a unit, even without a lease, they're not a trespasser, they're effectively a tenant at will who must be removed through proper notice and eviction, not lockouts. Even without a lease, removing someone usually requires formal notice and an eviction case. Illegal lockouts are a separate problem entirely. But that wasn't the point. The point was the building had rules, and he'd signed them, and I'd turned our love into a violation with pause. I argued we could ride it out. He shook his head. If they file, I show up in housing court with a lease that says, no unapproved occupants and photos of your dog. The judge will ask if I cured. If I say no, it's an eviction on me. I'm not risking that. Landlords typically must serve the correct notice first. If tenants don't cure, they can proceed with an eviction lawsuit. Judges look for the proper notice and an unresolved breach. That night I packed Bindi's bed into my hatchback and drove to my sister's place. I told myself it was temporary. The word tasted like denial. 2 days later, I moved my own things. Drawers returned to cups. Mateo took pictures of the apartment. Every room, every corner. Like a before and after in reverse, and emailed the property manager, violations cured as of today, unauthorized occupant/pet removed. They responded with landlord pros, acknowledged. We will not proceed if no further violations occur. Translation, we see you, keep it that way. Landlords often require written notice that a breach was cured. Curing typically stops the eviction. I didn't stop coming by. I had fob muscle memory and shame amnesia. I swung through on a Saturday to grab my diffuser and ended up on the couch crying, head on his lap. We ordered pho. He let me stay until midnight and then walked me to the door like a guest. I said, what if I just come back tomorrow? He stared at the pantry where the lease still hung. We can't pretend this didn't happen. On Monday a new letter appeared. This one addressed to me by name. Notice of trespass. Property grounds. Non-residents are not permitted to occupy or regularly use amenities. Return visits must be brief and with the consent of the resident. Any entry without consent may result in a criminal trespass warning. The property manager followed up with an email to Mateo. As the registered tenant, you may request we issue a trespass warning to any non-resident who continues to occupy the property without authorization. It wasn't the police crashing through our door, it was property management documenting boundaries. Apartment complexes can and do issue trespass warnings to non-tenants to keep them off common areas or the property entirely, especially after violations. Criminal trespass law is often used by apartment managers to bar non-tenants from property. Legally, a trespass warning provides notice that someone may not enter. He forwarded me the email with a single line, please text before you come by. If I don't respond, don't come. That was the softest way he could say what the building had already said hard. I hated the word trespass near my name. I hated that my love story had a compliance trail. I also hated taking responsibility, so I did what cowards do and arrived unannounced while he was on a 7 to 7 shift. The concierge wouldn't release an Amazon return label to me. Only listed residents, she repeated, polite and immovable. I went upstairs anyway because my fingers remembered the code before my brain remembered shame. On his counter sat our life, the notice to cure, the follow-up acknowledgement, and a printed email titled, Non-Resident Access Policy. I stood there with my key fob in my palm and realized how fast affection becomes administration when you ignore rules that keep people housed. Mateo called that night. He didn't yell. He said, I can't do the gray area anymore. He had already asked the office to remove my access from the call box. He told the concierge that I wasn't to be let up without him confirming. He said, if you come without asking, they'll issue the warning. I won't stop them. The next time I tried to swipe in alone, the turnstile flashed red. The concierge offered to text Mateo. I shook my head and left, feeling like a child who'd reached for a stove twice. Friends kept telling me he was being extreme. People have dogs, they said. People live together. They weren't wrong. People do. People also sign things, and buildings enforce them, and the difference between a home and a hotel is a lease with rules somebody respects. Cure or quit notices exist because the world runs on paper long after feelings leave the room. Bindi settled in at my sister's. Longer walks, more kids to lick. I went back to my sublet that smells like thrifted citrus and tried not to scroll the building's tagged Instagram posts. Mateo texted once a week for a month. You can come by Saturday 2 to 4 to pick up anything else. Boundaries as visiting hours. One afternoon, halfway through my lab shift, he sent a different kind of message. I renewed for another year. No fight, no gloat. Just a statement that he had a home because he cured what I wouldn't. It's tempting to say he chose the lease over me. He didn't. He chose stability over chaos, documented truth over my feelings about what rules should be. He also chose his career. An eviction would have been a blot on any rental application for years. The man counts chemotherapy meds in milligrams. Did I think he wouldn't count risks like this? If you want the moral from the girl who smuggled a dog and herself into a life she didn't sign for, being loved doesn't make you a tenant. Buildings aren't mean, they're consistent. A cure or quit isn't a threat, it's an offer. Take it, or don't be surprised when the gate beeps red. I'm on a wait list for a pet-friendly studio now. I paid the deposit myself. I asked questions about authorized occupants before I signed. The manager smiled like he'd watched this movie before. I cried on the elevator and then cried again when Bindi trotted around our new place like it was something we'd earned instead of stolen. Mateo and I text now like people who are almost okay. Sometimes I want to say, come over. It's allowed. I don't. He deserves the quiet that leases by. So do I. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. She moved in, by inches, with a dog and no lease, and the property manager issued a cure or quit for unauthorized occupant/pet. He chose to cure. Removed the unapproved roommate and pet. So the complex didn't file. He set boundaries after with a no trespass warning option through management. Lesson: love doesn't override leases, curing a violation protects your home, and ignoring rules turns relationships into paperwork. If you liked this video, please subscribe for more. Thanks, and see y'all tomorrow.